So we are throwing it back to when I made my first video, I believe, on this camera. I think it was literally a camera unboxing, and I was sat here, I do believe, on my dining table. So excuse the folded clothes that need to be put away and any other mess you see in the background. So I just want to change it up a little bit. I know the lighting's not the best here, but it's still bright somewhat. The light's kind of shining through the house, so I thought, why not have a little bit of a different scenery. So today I'm going to be coming here to do some reviews as usual, seeing as it is the start of the new month. I'm going to start off with my book wrap-ups, purely because, just like the month before, I've only read one book, and again, for similar reasons. It was because, one, I was actually watching a hell of a lot more YouTube and films and TV, specifically films near the beginning of the month, and two, because I'm also reading a big book alongside this, and I guess, yeah. So the book that I managed to read and finish is Peter Pan and Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens by J.M. Barrie. So it has both stories within this book. So honestly, when I picked this up, I thought, oh, this is going to be a fun, easy to read book because, you know, it's for children, it's small. And then I opened it and I realised how tiny the words were. I mean, they're not the smallest I've seen, but it's definitely, it's one of those Bible thin papers, if you know what I mean. So it's more than you'd expect by looking at just a small book like this. And of course, there are two stories in here, so, you know, double whammy. So it wasn't as easy breezy as I was expecting, and of course, being a classic as well, it was written in a way that's not as easy to digest nowadays, if that makes any sense to you. So certain terms that was either kind of offensive nowadays, and also certain terms that I didn't know what they meant and had to look up and realised, oh, okay, it's just the old-fashioned version of this. So of course that sort of stopped me in my tracks a little bit when reading it, and also I think in some ways that may have in some cases made me a little bit more reluctant to pick it up than other times. But I mean, I gave it a 4 stars, so I did enjoy it. I believe this was the first time I've ever actually read Peter Pan, and definitely Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens, but I enjoyed both. I do have a little breakdown of each story within Goodreads in my written review. Both stories in general I did give a 4 stars, so that's how it reflected in my overall rating of a 4 stars. That's how I looked at it, at least. Yeah, I thought it was a good story. Highlights from it, like highlighted points that I'd like to mention, is there's some times where the children, I don't know if it's just because of the time period it was set in and children were like expected to be a certain way regardless of their age. They definitely acted older than they were. Some things they said or did, I was just a little bit like, oh, should you really be thinking that way as a child? Do you know what I mean? Like, nothing serious, but things that made me like a little bit weirded out to be reading from a child perspective. Yeah, again, if you want to know any specific details about each story, feel free to check out my written review. So moving on to media, I guess, films and TV shows that I watched in, what even was the May? What even was the May? What even was the month is what I was trying to say. So this takes us to March watchings. What am I talking about? I've had so much sugar today that I'm literally just like on a high right now. Anyway, let me get up my little reviews. In terms of films and TV stuff that I watched during March, I actually watched about 6 things, I think, and hold on tight because they're going to be long-winded reviews and full of emotion, I think, because I ended up finishing a show that has been a part of my life for ages, which I'll talk about in a bit. I saw an amazing film, which is going to be the first thing I review. I found a new series that I really enjoyed, and I don't know, I was just starting and finishing a lot of things, and particularly for the TV series, it was like, oh, I was left wondering what on earth I was going to do with my life. So let's just carry on. So the first film that I watched, I went to see The Greatest Showman, which I can't believe was still out in cinemas. It came out on Boxing Day, I believe, and I went and saw it early March time, so I was quite shocked that it was still in like the regular cinema screens, like the big screens. But I've got to say, it's by far one of my favourite films now. even now it's got me feeling some type of way. Like even now I'm running around the house singing the songs, I'm thinking about specific scenes, I get all choked up. Basically I've been wanting to see it since I saw the trailers for it, and I kept saying around that time how I wanted to run around and join the circus, and honestly this has fueled that desire even more, even though I know circuses are far different in reality most likely, but still it's like it's put a spark of passion inside me that I just want to explore, which is strange. So yeah, I don't really know how to get all my emotions out eloquently, because honestly this film itself is just so emotionally overwhelming. Even now, like as I said, thinking about it like weeks later, I'm still like awestruck by the whole thing really. So literally as I was watching the film, I felt like I had a piece of string attached to me that was like taut throughout the whole thing. I was literally on the edge of my seat, like watching the whole thing, like I was in awe. It was so fantastic, it really was. Chloe mentioned at first that particularly for the first song, it had a Panic at the Disco vibe to it, like the music in it was awesome. Honestly, that first song did give me chills, and Hugh Jackman, just damn. He had a sort of country sounding voice, if you know what I mean, but it worked, even though the style of music was, one, not what I was expecting from this film, and two, not country in style really. And then there were other songs like Come Alive that for me had a sort of Take That feel to it. The best thing is that all of this music, mostly like pop in style, worked for a film set in New York Victorian era. It worked. It didn't feel out of place. It went with the atmosphere, it set the mood, and it just worked, honestly, it really did. For some reason I was actually expecting to see Victoria from the ITV show Victoria in this. It didn't happen, don't know why I was fixated on that, but thought I'd mention that as a passing comment. But yeah, back to the singing, honestly, had my heart breaking. It just got me on a whole nother level. If I didn't think the story was good already, the music added just so much dimension to it, just another level, you know. I was listening to the soundtrack pretty much straight after the film, and they actually felt shorter than they did in the movie, but I guess it's because in the movie some parts it stopped for a bit, there'd be a bit of talking and then like they'd carry it on, or it just had a continuous feel of the song flowing from one scene to another, if you know what I mean. So I was like, oh no, I want to hear it more and more, and then that took me on the everlasting journey of putting the music on repeat, and I'm still in love with it. Honestly, with the amount of singing and how neatly it joined into other scenes and that, and how awesome the singers were, like the actors and that, it made me wonder how some of these actors don't have albums like out, because their voices was just awesome. And I'm expecting, you know, being studio or whatever, there's some editing done to it, but it was just amazing. I know that some actors were miming, for example the character of Jenny Lind, is that her name? She was actually sung by Lauren Alred, which I think was on Britain's Got Talent or something. But honestly, even after I found that out, I still feel that the scene where she sung Never Enough was one of the most powerful scenes. It was just beautiful and raw, like, oh my god, I'm just thinking about it, it's giving me chills just thinking about it. But it didn't dim down my enjoyment of the film finding that out, you know. I mean, not everybody, even though they can be amazing actors, they can't all have the same level of skill in singing, so I can understand that. And they don't seem to have hidden it or anything, like it was easy to find that this wasn't the, you know, the actress singing. But yeah, it was still amazing. So again, because that was the case, maybe that was the case for other actors, I don't know. So I love how we kind of see the end, and then it sort of spirals into the beginning of PT's you know, starting up the circus and everything like that. It was really interesting how they did it, like with the introduction song, and then it goes back in a way and explains how everything got to that point, which was really cool. I honestly didn't know how it was going to be structured, but it worked, it really did. All his relationships just felt pure and real and raw, I guess, and he had me cheering for him all the way, even when he was trying to re-humble himself and getting a bit too big for his boots, you know. He had me, you know, in the sidelines going, you can do it, you can do it, look at what you've achieved. I did feel bad though in some aspects, because when, for example, a character was introduced, it felt like Charity, which was PT's wife, her light literally dimmed and I almost favoured this other character over her, and I was like, oh my god. And then you could see it from her perspective, and I felt heartbroken for thinking those things, and I was like, oh, snap out of it, Jen, that's what the film's trying to do to you. You feel guilt. So honestly, it had me try not to cry throughout the whole thing, but for the whole thing I literally had tears brimming. They were just on the surface of my eyes, and I was holding back, because it wasn't even when it was sad, like it was just from happiness and excitement and just pure enjoyment for a film. It just had me that emotional. It was such a feel-good film, but when devastation happened, it hit you hard, and it really hurt. The story itself was just so immersive, and I desperately wanted everything to just work out for everyone. Obviously that can't be the case, but I was rooting for everyone basically. The side stories with a little bit of romance here and there actually made the story more powerful. I know quite often times when you have too many random storylines battling, you know, for power over the main storyline, it can be overwhelming and it just falls apart. But each storyline kind of strengthened the main one, and it added more depth to the characters other than just the main character, if you know what I mean. In saying that, although the characters were absolutely amazing, or the actors themselves, I do feel like we should have had a little bit more character development, like with relationship growth of particular characters. For example, Anna and her brother, to show what their life is like more. So yeah, I feel like that would have increased the believability of some of their backgrounds and their stories themselves, and just made them a little bit less one-dimensional, if you know what I mean. Even though none of them were really 1D, they were all good enough, but some of them could have been better fleshed out than others, especially ones that I were really interested in. The animals, CGI I believe, looked absolutely fantastic. I actually like that they were treated well. I know they're not real, but within the film the animals were treated well, which I know probably would not have been the case, especially for the very first circus created. But it was nice that in real life and within the film world, no animals were hurt or anything like that, so that, you know, that was nice for me. Oh, I've got to say, I loved how this film was just, as one character actually described it, as a celebration of humanity. That just spoke to me. I felt all included, you know. The effort that must have gone into this film, the effort and the time, I was just so impressed, it really was. And I felt like I knew all the lyrics by the end of the film, only hearing it once. What a beautiful film. What else can I say? I'll definitely be watching it on repeat. As I said, it's got to be one of my favourite films now. It just felt so magical, and I felt as much as part of the film as the characters were, like just watching it. A simple thing just like that. But yeah, I'd totally recommend it if you haven't seen The Greatest Showman. I gave it 5 stars. Now, I've been talking about The Greatest Showman for like 10 minutes, and I kind of want to sing one of the songs. So here we go. This is Rewrite the Stars with Zendaya and Zac Efron. Efron? Why did I say that? You know I want you. It's not a secret I try to hide. I'm reading the lyrics by the way. I know you want me, so don't keep saying our hands are tied. You claim it's not in the cards, fate is pulling you miles away and out of reach from me. But you're here in my heart, so who can stop me if I decide that you're my destiny? Oh my god. What if we rewrite the stars? Say you were made to be mine. Nothing could keep us apart. You'd be the one I was meant to find. It's up to you and it's up to me. No one can say what we get to be. So why don't we rewrite the stars? Maybe the world could be ours tonight. I'm just going to load now. You think it's easy? You think I don't want to run to you, but there are mountains, and there are doors that we can't walk through. I know you're wondering why, because we're able to be just you and me within these walls. But when we go outside, you're gonna wake up and see that it was hopeless after all. No one can rewrite the stars. How can you say you'll be mine? Everything keeps us apart, and I'm not the one you were meant to find. It's not up to you, it's not up to me, when everyone tells us what we can be. How can we rewrite the stars? Say the world can be ours tonight. All I want is to fly with you, all I want is to fall with you, so just give me all of you. It's impossible, is it impossible? Say that it's impossible. Wait, say that it's possible. How do we rewrite the stars? Say you're made to be mine. Nothing can keep us apart, cause you are the one I was meant to find. It's up to you, and it's up to me. No one can say all we get to be. Why don't we rewrite the stars? Changing the world to be ours. You know I want you. It's not a secret I try to hide, but I can't have you. We're bound to break up my hands tied. So after that little musical break, okay, I'm feeling more like I've released the inner musical within me. So let's carry on with the rest of these reviews, shall we? I've got like 5 more to go through, so this will be fun. Next thing I ended up watching was Being Blacker, which I gave a 5 stars, and it was a BBC Two documentary that I didn't realise. For some reason, we're rarely on BBC Two to be honest, but we was on that channel for some reason, and my mum was like, oh, I want to watch it. She ended up falling asleep, so we recorded it, but I watched the whole thing and I was like, yeah. So it's a film about Stephen, known as Blacker, living in Brixton, as he goes through like the life and death of his mother. So it kind of starts with his mum's funeral, which is a bit of a strange thing to record, but him and his family were open to just seeing everything that goes on in his life. Honestly, I thought it was just fantastic, and it really hit home to me, because I have a similar background. A lot of my family live in London, and for example like the funerals and stuff like that, it was like that literally looks like our kind of funeral, so I was really invested in it, and literally like the gatherings and stuff, I was like, this is what me and my family do when we get a chance, you know. So it was just nice to see it being, you know, shown to the people, like to other people, that, you know, give them an insight, if you know what I mean. The only thing that let it down a little bit is the commentating, who I believe was the director of the documentary. I feel like she was making like really weird, silly, informal comments and questions that for some reason it just irritated me a little bit. I will say maybe it was just because ignorance and she was just trying to learn, but sometimes, you know, the way people word things, you're like, are you stupid? So it just rubbed me the wrong way. But other than that, I think it was really cool documentary. It was eye-opening for people that that haven't been brought up that way, don't have any connections to people, like family connections or whatever, or, you know, grew up outside of London and that and don't know anything really about it. And it kind of shows the struggle of growing up black in London, which I know a lot of my cousins have gone through and stuff like that. So I really did enjoy it. It was quite eye-opening, insightful, and if you're interested in it, I'm sure it's on BBC iPlayer if you just want to have a look. You know, it's quite a laid-back, chilled, relaxed documentary, so it's an easy to watch one as well. Easy one to watch. And next up, the first series that I finished and was like, what now, was The Man in the High Castle season 2, which I gave a 5 stars. Everything's been amazing so far in terms of what I've been watching. So because the content is so dense, I usually struggle to watch more than 1 episode in a day. But I pushed through it this time and watched the last half of the season, I think, in just a few days. Also, I did find myself still very confused with some of the storyline, particularly concerning some of the Japanese characters. And because it is a heavy on detail, alternative historical show, it did end up making me feel out of touch with the rest of the show. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I sort of was able to pick my way through and understand what was happening, you know, generally, but some little ties were just left untied for me because I didn't quite get what was going on in certain aspects. That being said, this is such a clever show that I cannot praise enough. It's very intellectual in the feel of how the show's presented, which, I mean, it kind of needs to be, you know, dealing with such a bold subject matter, the, I guess, what if this happened in history type of genre, you know, that has its viewers end up questioning history. So the way they do it is very clever, very intricate, but if you're someone like me and you can't always keep up with that, you will struggle just a little bit. Last part of the finale though was absolutely amazing. I literally had tears sprouting in just like disbelief and shock and just excitement over it all. Honestly, I'd recommend this show heavily, and I still need to read the book that it's based on. I'd like to find out if the show has deviated a lot from the original work, as there is, I believe, going to be a 3rd season, so I want to know, you know, does it go off on its own tangent and its own ideas, or does it stick true to the story? So yeah, great show if you're into history, alternate history, like what could happen if this happened instead of this. Very interesting. Now, the thing that really devastated me in terms of TV shows, Vampire Diaries. I know, another thing that people love or hate. I finally finished the whole thing. I finished season 8 and I ended up giving overall a 4.5 5 stars. Why did I struggle to say that? So I'm generally just going to be reviewing the whole show as a whole. I do apologise, I know I'm already looking down a lot, but I apologise if I look down even more, because it's a very bitty thing. I've been writing these reviews as and when I watch the show, if that makes sense, so it's a little bit more bitty than usual. Do apologise, and obviously I can't keep a lot of information in my head because I am dense. So yeah, where do I begin, to be honest? Like, where do I even start? The beginning, I guess, that would help. Like Pretty Little Liars, I have been watching this show on and off since I was about like 14 years old, maybe. I remember I kept rewatching like the first 2 seasons because every time I wanted to continue watching, I would forget what I last watched, and I'd always for some reason leave like a massive gap. And I think that was because back then I used to be obsessed with collecting box sets, so I had a joint season 1 and season 2 box set, and then I'd have to wait till like birthdays and that to get other things, and because I guess I didn't get it each time, it made me expand the time that I hadn't seen it even longer, and then when I did decide to continue on with the series, I'd forgotten. So it was just like a continuous circle of rewatching the first 2 seasons over and over again for like a good few years, until finally I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna find it online and I'm gonna watch it properly. But that's out of the way. I can't believe I have finally finished this show. Oh my god, I was so devastated as soon as it was over. Like, as soon as I watched the last episode, I was just sat there in tears. I'm gonna admit it, I was crying. So I've literally come upstairs to film this because I don't want my mum to judge me. Oh my god, I can't even talk. I've just finished the Vampire Diaries finale. Oh, my heart is racing and I'm so incredibly sad. I bet this is so uncomfortable to watch while you're probably laughing at me, but oh my god, this is for your sister, to be honest, this is for your sister, but that was the best ending ever. Oh! I'm gonna go and cry. I really was crying. To be honest, I felt like I always enjoyed the episodes, but there was definitely times where things felt very repetitive. If you've watched Vampire Diaries, you probably know exactly what I mean. Certain scenes just felt like different characters, same thing. Do you know what I mean? I'd say around season 6-ish, it started going really crazy. There was a lot of time jumps and a lot of going back and forth within the show. Too many new enemies to keep track of that would keep coming in and out and returning and going away. One was defeated, another would be brought in, and it basically just got batshit insane with deaths and resurrections and twists. But despite it all, I still enjoyed the show as a whole, especially because later on you get some amazing characters like Kai and Joe, which I won't go into anything spoilery at all, so don't worry, I've got you, boo. I found that there's always, most oftentimes, a British enemy, a powerful threat that ends up not as bad as you would expect them to be, and then that same sort of pattern would happen, which got old eventually, but I mean, I obviously still enjoyed it because I kept coming back. What I really liked about it is because it gave you backstories to the characters. They weren't just, most of the time, they weren't just, again, you know, one-dimensional. It explained why they were how they were. We got a lot of past flashbacks to scenes that kind of helped you develop them as a character to see why they act the way they do, and it was just fulfilling in that way, I suppose. I know, because you're gonna be thinking, seriously, did this show really get that deep with you? But there were some times when characters would say something or a scene would happen and it made me think really deeply about humanity as a whole. Obviously we're dealing with vampires and stuff, but they have some really awesome monologues that make you think deeply about your own self. And yeah, deep I know, but I like that the show wasn't just, you know, hot vampires and like hot people killing each other and stuff. Like they actually said some deep shit at times, you know, which made me think about it, so I like that. I will say season 8, obviously the last season, I really enjoyed. Actually got to see how the vampires, both good and bad, that we came to love affected everyday real people. Well, real to the show. it hurt my heart really. And then there were times where it got a bit too samey and nice and calm, and I wanted characters to die, like characters that I really loved. I wanted to see dead, just to keep me on the edge of my seat. However, when I got things like that, I was devastated, and I was like, no, why did I wish this? Why would I wish this upon anybody? Just for my sick entertainment. Oh, but you know, it happened. Oh, I've also got to say, the black female power in the finale is what started my crying. I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful, you can do it, yes. And then from there it was a downward spiral, because I was just an emotional wreck after that, after it really hit that this was the finale. I was literally bawling my eyes out by the end of it. I felt like it was such a beautifully designed way to end such a brilliant show that had been a part of my life for years. I would totally recommend it. Just keep in mind that with the amount of characters that come and go into the story and the multiple interwoven storylines, there is a hell of a lot to keep track of, so at times you might be lost like I was, but it was still really enjoyable anyway. Next up we have an anime. So I watched a show called Ronja, the Robber's Daughter, which I ended up giving a 4.5 stars to. It's actually based on a book, and it is produced by no other than Studio Ghibli. So I stumbled on this while looking for a show to binge watch in my last few days of having a free trial of Amazon Prime. I was actually going to go and watch Lucifer, but it was more of like a serious longy kind of thing, and I was like, nah, seen an anime, it's going to be short episodes, let's watch it. And to be honest, I was excited more for the case that it was by Studio Ghibli, and I had never known them to do anime. I actually think this was their first anime that they've done. Technically it's their first one, I believe, so you know, even better. I was really excited to watch it. So it's 25 minutes per episode, but within the season there's 27 episodes, including like a trailer, which honestly, as a bonus, I always feel like the bonus is a trailer, and the trailer should be at the start of the series, but it's at the end, which is strange. I don't know. Quite a nice length for a show, for an anime, and yeah, strange. I really like the colours. They're super vivid with attention to detail that, you know, Studio Ghibli has never let me down on. However, I feel as though I can't call it beautiful like I can call the majority of their films. Maybe in my head I was thinking, right, maybe this is because it's supposed to feel more like an easy to watch, laid back show. So maybe they chose this as their adopted style for an anime serial as opposed to an anime film. Whereas when you look at it, films want to immerse you as much as possible, and I feel like Studio Ghibli does that both with story and the beautiful cinematography, you know, to fully like immerse you into the experience. Or then my other reason was, okay, perhaps it's because of a budget, you get less budget for a TV show maybe, but I'm thinking as a big production movie production, they would have had the more money, but I don't know. Nevertheless, what I'm trying to get across is the imagery felt a little bit off for Studio Ghibli. I will say it did give me kind of like Zelda vibes. There was a couple of characters that reminded me of Link, so maybe that was it. And also they had like masks in it, and I was just like, Majora's Mask. Anyway, back to that weird off feeling. The helpful trivia of Amazon Prime helped me to realise that this was their first animation not done by hand. It was genetically, it was computer. Basically it was animated on a computer, and maybe that's what gave me the blocky, weird offness vibes that I was getting as well. Could be one of those three things or all of them. I do think it had a lot to do with the fact that it was animated on a computer. I could just tell it didn't flow as nicely as other stuff I had seen, but obviously it being a TV show and I'm comparing it to movies, I thought maybe there was an intentional difference, or I don't know. I will say though, I noticed a slight blushing on characters' cheeks when they had some alcohol, and I thought that was a really nice bit of attention to detail there. It was just really cute. They looked all merry and red on the face. Just a little random thing I thought I'd throw out there. People that I saw in reviews had said they didn't like the English dub, but I quite liked the majority of the voices, to be honest. It's a generous mix of accents found across Britain, which I think added some flavour to the characters. Also, there was a noticeable delay in the conversation of characters. I guess it breaks the flow, but I assume it's where they've dubbed over it, and you know, we talk so fast, you know, it just, they're waiting to catch up, otherwise they'd be talking over each other and then it wouldn't match up with the animation. So I can get that it was just trying to sync it up, but yeah, it was still a little bit like awkward, pause and wait for the next character to talk. One of those shows where I never really knew anyone's names because they weren't really introduced straight away and there are so many of them, but as we went along the story I got some of their names, especially as well because we had a little bit of trivia, so it would tell you who's on screen and who voices them and that, so that did help and I did take note of that. But honestly in the beginning all I took note of was Ronja, or Ronja, and Mattis, who's very passionate and very dramatic as well, which is her dad, which is actually played by Rufus Hound, which is a comedian I actually recognise because I don't really know names of comedians or actors. However, there does seem to be a few comedians in this because there was another one dubbing in this called Adrian Edmondson, who I believe, was it him? He was in Harry Potter, I think. Yeah, in saying that I slowly picked up on other characters throughout the show. Some of them are really strong in their passion for their beliefs and what they think is wrong and right. Honestly, I love how they displayed that, especially among the youth, trying to make some changes within, like, I guess I want to call them guilds. So yeah, it was pretty inspiring. As for the story, the first episode wasn't really anything that gripped me, but of course, being a Studio Ghibli ho, I just wanted to stick with it to see, you know, how it developed from there. It was still very enchanting, more than I was expecting from the first few episodes of this show. It gets more deep with around episode 15 where some certain events happen that make you think like, whoa, shit. Random thing, I do this with books, but basically when there's a book with a contents page I will read each like chapter title and try and guess what's going to happen in that title. However, I don't do this with this anime because they're pretty obvious what's going to happen and I feel like I accidentally spoiled myself, even though it didn't really, like, more was happening to just the title, but I spoiled myself basically, so don't do that. I don't know why, I just have this weird morbid curiosity and yeah. One thing that really confused me throughout the whole thing was that Mattis, again Ronja's dad, didn't bring her up in the robbing business straight away. I feel like a whole load of aggravation would have been avoided if he had been honest with her and explained everything, but he wasn't, and so it was just a little bit confusing, like, why, this is your business, why wouldn't you involve your child in it so that they know obviously they're gonna have to take over in the future? Do you know what I mean? It was just, if you watch it maybe you can see what kind of aspect I'm pointing at, but that's just something that probably was there to develop the plot a bit more. There's not a lot of meaningful music in this. This is one of the things that I love about Studio Ghibli's films. They always have such beautiful music. Aside from the odd background instrumental, there's not much other than the theme song, which I really love, and the wolf song, which I really love too. But yeah, I just wish it was more music inspired as well, because I don't know, that the scenery, the music, these are just main things of film to be honest, but the scenery, the music, and you know, the story as well is what I really love about Studio Ghibli films, and I feel like this one again was a little bit wishy-washy in that. So there's actually a 1984 movie, like live action movie adaptation of this book that I think I want to check out too. In terms of a season 2, I had assumed that there'd be no more after this because it kind of rounds itself off, and I'd be quite happy if this was just it for a season. It was quite a nice show that feels finished. I don't feel like I need any more from it. However, I think it depends on how well it does in terms of Amazon Prime users and how much feedback it gets from it. So I guess there might be another season in the future, but again, it's nothing I'd rush to because I enjoyed it just as it is, and I don't know how much they can really expand on that. It's also advertised another sort of animated film production, which is Studio Canal. Have any of you guys heard of that? I've never heard of it before. But yeah, it's another animated movie production. I'll definitely check those out because their films look quite interesting as well. And I'll eventually run out of Studio Ghibli films, I think, especially after all the Miyazaki, so because they're the main films that I really like, the Miyazaki made ones. So yeah, good show. I would be happy if it was just this as a season. And then the last thing, I promise it's the last thing now, I watched was Peter Pan, sort of just to, you know, keep me in the Peter Pan mood after finishing this earlier on in the month. So yeah, after reading the book for the first time, I decided I just kind of wanted to rewatch the film because I hadn't seen it in years, and I had, for some reason, recorded it on the telly. I don't know when I did that, but I did, so it was like, it was just there for me to watch, you know. Of course, being myself, I couldn't help compare the film to the book. I didn't do it too much. This time round I just took note of like one or two things that I'll mention. I think the aunt in the film replaces the maid in the book because they have a similar role almost in terms of like their personality, and some of the stuff they say I could see overlapping with what the maid had said in the book. However, the aunt is more, she's more of an influential character, obviously, because of her status as a family member rather than one of the workers, you know. I can't help it, but I found myself quoting along. I was literally like word for word saying stuff, which is really strange because my mum came in like halfway through the film from work and she was looking at me like, Jen, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, I'm just quoting. Like the book, there were a few times when the children said or did stuff that was a bit adult, but I feel like in the case of the movie it translated more, so it was more obvious to me. But again, I think it's just because as well I've just come from reading the book, and that's something that stood out for me there, that I noticed it so much here. Again, it wasn't intimate. There's a particular scene, it wasn't intimate in a weird way. I mean, it was a quieter, slower scene where there was a lot of eye contact and it was like romantic, but again it made me feel a bit awkward seeing that. I don't know, maybe I'm just a prude, but it wasn't anything crazy, that'd just be weird. But it was the atmosphere and the feeling that went around with it. I don't know, I just felt like it was a bit too much for like a 12-year-old, you know. It seemed that they stuck with the happy thoughts helping a lot in the power of flight, which was interesting, and I think it helped to deliver the final battle nicely. So yeah, I ended up giving that a 4 stars, I believe. So very productive in the movie TV watching, not very productive in the book reading, but I have also, as well as watching more film and that, it's just easier sometimes to just blur it all out and focus on something visually. But I've also been writing a hell of a lot on my dissertation. I've been, you know, feeling guilty reading for fun when really I should be reading journal articles, and I feel that's why it pushed me into watching stuff as well, because yeah. So that's it for my wrap up. It's been a long and rambly one. I'm gonna go now. Oh, my hair. A video on how I got these cool pastely shades will be up shortly. It might be up after this one, but we shall see. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll speak to you in another video soon. Bye.